All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm going to be the moderator of the next panel. My name is Dan Kurzrock. I feel a lot better being up here after Mark's talk because I can admit that I know nothing, right? Which is how I feel pretty much all the time. So great to know that I've got company in that. Okay, I'm going to take a seat now. Join you guys. Reference my notes here. So we've got a great panel for you this morning, comprised of innovators, of disruptors, if you will, folks that have taken action on their ideas, and it's something that everyone at this summit is super inspired to do, right? I mean, we're here because we are taking action on our ideas, and it hasn't been easy along the way. We've got a pretty diverse panel of entrepreneurs and also nonprofit. So myself, just a quick introduction about me. My name's Dan. I'm the co-founder and chief grain officer of a food company called ReGrained. We came up with the harebrained, crazy idea of, as underage homebrewers in college, making our own beer, feeling silly every time we were throwing away the food we were creating with every batch. And I started making loaves of bread to sell it to friends so I could brew beer for free, which, I mean, who would have guessed it would turn into what we're working on now, which is really trying to be a food system solution, connecting the dots between the brewing industry and generators of edible, nutritious waste products, and the food industry, who's trying to make more marketable products that are better for people and better for the planet. And it took the progression from being a hobby all the way through to what is now a full-time business, trying to align the food we eat with the planet we love. On this panel, we've got Elisa from the Story of Stuff, representing the nonprofit perspective. We've got David from Bureo, who will tell you a bit about more about. They'll introduce themselves a bit more, and then we have Jocelyn from GoBox. And we've got Shanon from Experience Momentum. So thanks for being here with us. So to me, when I was asked to do this panel, and the question was, okay, disruption for good. And so I kind of took a step back and tried to think of what disruption means to me. And so for me, it's about a rejection of the status quo and of this logical fallacy that I like to talk about a lot called the appeal to tradition, right? Which is basically the idea that, hey, things are the way they are because that's the way they are, and that makes sense, right? I mean, it's just silly. And so taking that mindset of rejecting the appeal to tradition and trying to do something different that's going to do something good, that is a mission that each of us on this panel have. So what I'd like to just kick it off with is if we could just kind of go down the line. If you guys could share your disruption, maybe with Mark's framing of what pain does it solve, right? And how you came up with the idea, and we'll go from there. So I want to start with you, Elisa.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Elisa Ringholm, and I'm the chief of staff at the Story of Stuff project. This is my first time being at this 1% gathering, and I was a little bit nervous preparing for the panel, but in truth, now that I'm here, I really feel like I'm amongst old friends. So I just want to really appreciate the environment that 1% creates and the energy that you all are bringing to be inspired and to be welcoming, to all of us who are part of this network. So the Story of Stuff project is a nonprofit organization, and so we are on the receiving end of many of the donations that you all make. And we're really trying to disrupt our problem with stuff. We have too much stuff, too much of it is toxic, and we don't share it very well. And that's not the way things have to be. We were founded by Annie Leonard, who's an environmental activist who traveled around the world for 30 years researching where our trash goes when we throw it away. And so she went abroad and she saw dumping sites, she visited factories where our stuff is made, sweatshop-like conditions, places deforested and polluted from extraction methods that were unsustainable, and really wanted to, make a change and sort of talk about this issue and bring more awareness to the problem of consumerism and waste. And so our mission is to change the way we make, use, and throw away stuff to build a world that is more healthy, fair, and fun. And the way that we do that is really through storytelling. We're largely known for our videos that are animated. They have been viewed over 40 million times, and they tell the stories of different stuff in our lives and the impact it has on the environment, on human health, and on our democracy. We also do advocacy. We do movement building with folks like you who are in this room and with our 1 million community members who live worldwide. And then also groups like the Cancer-Free Economy Network, working to build an economy free of toxins. And we also run services that provide waste savings like Catalog Choice, which is a free junk mail opt-out service. That's a little bit about us. Thank you for having me on this panel, too.
Yeah. Speaking of stuff, David.
Yeah, thanks. No, also really happy to be here. I'm David Stover from Bureo. We operate a fishnet collection and recycling program. We've been at 1% since 2014, but this is our first summit, so really happy to be here. Our disruption has changed quite a bit in the last 6 years. We started with an idea to design skateboards that would aim to take plastic pollution, keep it out of our ocean, and put it into a product that people could enjoy. And a lot of people still know us for skateboards. But thanks to the help and support that we've gotten from an incredible kind of network of nonprofits, and we're partnered with Patagonia as well over the last 6 years, we've been working on a supply chain solution now, where originally our idea was to just find a way to keep plastic out of the ocean. We were surfers, spent a lot of time traveling in the water, and like everyone here, we're just upset that we had to see plastic everywhere, and we started asking questions. And honestly, it was an overwhelming problem. Like, we didn't even know where to start. It's scary, it's frustrating, and what we've learned over the last 6 years is that it takes a lot of focus and a lot of tangible solutions to figure out where you can have impact. And we figured out that if we disrupt the way fishing nets are used, the way the fishing net industry purchases, buys, puts into use, and discards their nets, then we can have an impact for our ocean. So that's what we're working on now, is scaling a really transparent program that helps fisheries use nets more ethically and finds ways to recycle them. And then, as opposed to just us going out and trying to make a bunch of skateboards, we're actually partnering with companies kind of around the world that are able to replace new plastic with a recycled source. And so that's kind of our refined mission now, is to disrupt the way nets are used and find companies that can replace new plastic with a regenerated source.
Yeah, I love that. It's not about less bad, doing something less bad, right? It's about doing something good, upcycling, like finding the highest possible value. Jocelyn.
Sure.
Tell us about GoBox.
Yeah, so my name's Jocelyn Quarrell. I'm the owner of GoBox. GoBox is a reusable takeout container service. We are working to eliminate single-use plastic disposable waste for your food and drinks. Thank you. GoBox was founded in 2011 here in Portland by an entrepreneur named Laura Weiss. I acquired GoBox last year, so I'm still pretty fresh to this, and it's a bit of a pivot for me as well. Previous to this, I was building a career in sustainable transportation, focused on disruption through car sharing. I worked for Zipcar about 10 years ago, and then spent a number of years working in bike sharing. Bikes are kind of a passion of mine, and we, GoBox, we continue to do all of our deliveries and pickups by bicycle, keeping it zero emissions. When I saw the opportunity to take over GoBox, and I saw, although we don't call it that, this is just container sharing. And with my background in car and bike sharing, I thought that a lot of my experience there would be valuable in really scaling up this model, both here in Portland, but also through our licensing program, which enables entrepreneurs or organizations and communities around the globe to utilize our assets and launch a reuse system in their community. So we do have a small system operating in San Francisco that's looking to grow this year, and then we're gonna launch 2 other systems, one in Bend, Oregon, so Central Oregon, and then we're gonna launch a pilot program in Manhattan later this year as well, which is really, really exciting. Thank you.
All right, my name is Shanon Tysland, and I'm the founder of Experience Momentum. We are a wellness center up in Seattle. So we do physical therapy, massage, nutrition, and fitness services. And what we're really trying to disrupt is kind of that healthcare model that we're in, right? Currently, we are probably the sickest, most obese, most addicted cohort of people in the history of the planet, right? And we're not getting any healthier. But 17.9 GDP in healthcare is where we're at. And a couple years ago, for the first time since the 60s, the life expectancy of Americans has dropped for 2 consecutive years. So what we're doing just isn't working. And if we kind of look at what we're doing, are we passing more pills? Or are we kind of connecting with people, connecting with ourselves and saying, how do I stay healthy? And how can we connect that dot to the environment? And I think it's not ironic at all that the health of our planet is going down and the health of people is deteriorating. So we are trying to disrupt and really create that connection with our clients, with our team members, with our community on how can we be healthy and how can we help this planet be healthy. And so I'm just stoked to be here. And whenever I leave this, last night I was just a giddy 13-year-old boy like, I got all these ideas, and what can we do? And yeah, so we'll kind of probably get into what we're doing to disrupt the industry in a little bit, but that's who we are. Glad to be here.
That's great. I love it. You mean to tell me everything's connected? So who would have thought that? Yeah, that's amazing. And it's also great segue. It's as if we planned it, because this next topic that I want to get into with you guys is around this mythical innovation, right? The favorite definition I've ever heard of innovation is that it's putting creativity in action, right? So innovation is putting creativity in action. And so I loved, again, circling back to Mark just before the break, talking about cycling through a bunch of bad ideas as being a really important part of that. And I immediately thought of our first product wasn't like trying to sell commercial super grain flour to like some of the world's largest food companies. We were making bread, and then we're like, oh man, making bread kind of sucks. We eat a lot of bars. We can cut those into squares and put those into compostable bags that we can seal by hand, and let's try that. And the product, it truly tasted like a good idea early on, which is when you're a food company, you don't want to taste like a good idea. You want to taste like a great product, right? And so we've grown along. Hopefully you got some in your swag bags. Hopefully you guys like them. But the kind of the point here is the theme is that things are evolving over time, right? And we're trying to, and there's kind of pivot points along the way. So we'd love to hear from each of you, what some of those ways that you've put creativity in action, maybe a failure or two that you've had, along the way that is, progressing you towards, helped you progress towards where you are today. And maybe let's start somewhere else. Who wants to start? Shanon.
All right. Innovation, putting creativity into action. So our whole goal is how can we connect our community, our customers, our team member to the environment. We've been a 1% member since 2013, and we know nothing. But we're trying to figure out what sticks. And we've taken innovation and what are people already doing? How can we improve upon it? So we've implemented a couple of things where we have a customer of the month. And what we do is they get to donate a certain dollar amount to a 1% for the planet nonprofit. And so we get to gift them that dollar, which then they have to go to the website. They get to explore what is 1%, what are the nonprofits out there. And that's worked really well to help our customers. We do it with our team members. Our team member of the month gets to donate some dollars to a nonprofit of their choice through the 1% network. And then we also, I love having Elisa up here, we are trying to connect with our nonprofits. And so this year on Earth Day, we're bringing 4 nonprofits into our location physically to set up a booth, and our customers can interact and see where their dollars are going. And what we're going to do is kind of innovating off of what REI is doing. I was on spring break in Tucson last week, and I walked into an REI, and they had table out front, and they had 3 nonprofits, and you get to put a token into the bucket. Well, we are doing a version of that with our 4 local nonprofits, and we're going to have an online voting system where we're going to give away $5,000 on Earth Day, and our customers get to choose. And so now all of a sudden, we have this, wow, we can create a little buzz. Our nonprofits are there. We get to speak to the amazing things they're doing for the environment. And guess what? Without you, our customer, we can't do any of this. So really expressing that gratitude to our customers for allowing that and trying to connect the dot of you're a part of this. And I think that's a tricky part that we keep running into. Our customers come into us because they're hurt, they're injured, they're in pain, and they don't really care about this 1% thing, right? So we have to meet them where they are, but then how do we connect the dots? How do we get them interested in this? And that's what we're constantly trying to figure out. We're not there fully yet, but we are so fired up about how to figure it up, it's kind of crazy. And so that's kind of what we're doing to disrupt the industry a little bit.
Have you tried anything that hasn't worked? Or let me reframe. What's one thing that you've tried that hasn't worked?
What hasn't worked? You know, everything works a little bit, but I think we just want it to have such a bigger impact. But we'll take the one at a time, and we'll grow on that. I'm going to share a quick story. So I have a favorite coffee shop, and I'm sitting in my coffee shop because if I'm at work, I get nothing done. Well, now everyone knows me at the coffee shop, so I get nothing done. But I'm sitting at the coffee shop working, and I hear someone 2 tables across from me say, yeah, this place, they did this customer of the month, and my husband got to donate $200 to this nonprofit. It was really cool. And I'm sitting there with my back to them, and I turn around, and I didn't recognize it because it was the wife that was talking about this. But then they started talking about our company, Experience Momentum, and how cool is that they do this? And it just gave me goosebumps. And I'm like, that is the impact. One person now gets to share what's going on. And that is the impact we all can have here. And I hope you get that because it's huge, it's profound, and it creates a ripple that we may not see. And I just feel super blessed that I was able to be a couple tables away and hear that. It just reaffirmed what we're doing. I don't know anyone else that's doing it, so disruptive, and it's creating that impact.
Amazing. Jocelyn?
Sure. Yeah, give a round of applause to Shanon. That's great.
Woo!
Yeah, similarly, you know, we have 2 core values that I try to remind myself of every day. One is to provide a simple solution to a complex problem, and the other is to try to build community around our cause. And so I think that speaks to what Shanon was just saying. You know, our disruptive model is not one that we can facilitate exclusively on our own. We can only disrupt and innovate and create change through our customers and through our business partners. So we're trying to connect everybody together. It's valuable in communicating, you know, how redefining how waste works. You know, I think we're kind of educated to believe that the sort of packaging is just something that comes automatically with the products, and then it's up to us to try to figure out what to do with it. But that's not the way that it has to be. We can start at the beginning, you know, the life cycle, and figure out how we can disrupt all the way along. And it takes everybody kind of owning their part of that cycle and being genuinely engaged in figuring out what can I do to help there. So that's what we're trying to do through our system, both here in Portland and in communities across the world.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I love that it's not incremental change, right? Where you're not just talking about taking to-go-ware and making it out of more sustainable stuff, although I'm sure you're doing some efforts, you know, there too, but it's about taking that step back, right? And seeing how we can influence, you know, our system just to operate differently entirely.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
it's so big and it's so complex, and it's hard to know where to start. And so we, you know, every day it's easy to be overwhelmed and say, like, this problem is totally out of control. There's no way to stop it. But there is a way. We can start to have incremental impact every single day through minor actions. And that's what GoBox is trying to do.
Have you found anything that is helpful at getting that customer, that human, to then return, I'm sure you've had to try a bunch of things to get them to get these containers back to you.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a really great question. Our containers that we use right now, this is an off-the-shelf product. We are not a manufacturer at this point. And this is not chipped or RFID'd or anything. It's just a simple container. But we are a tech-enabled system in that we utilize a mobile app to keep track of how people are using the service. So people subscribe to GoBox. When you order takeout, you open up our mobile app, you enter a 4-digit code, and then get a verification screen. And once you get that, the food vendor knows this person is good to walk out the door with their food in a takeout container. And then after the meal, subscribers return the container to one of our conveniently located drop sites around town. And it's a one in, one out sort of system. So in the same way that Netflix was back in the early days, you rent one container at a time and you can't get another one until you return that container. So we're trying to build in that accountability to some degree. But I have to say that I'm genuinely impressed at our subscribers and how well they utilize our system. Our containers are returned to us usually clean and quickly thereafter they've used it. So maybe this doesn't need to be tech enabled. Again, let's just keep it simple. And the folks that are utilizing the GoBox system, they understand why they're utilizing the GoBox system. And so my goal is just to continue to make it as seamless and convenient for folks to use, for both our food vendors and our subscribers.
Yeah, I love that. I'm reminded of Yvonne last night talking about how 1% it's not philanthropy, right? It's like part of the cost of doing business, and you're kind of getting people to think about the containers that they're getting as part of the cost of delivery, right? And just changing that mindset. That's great. That's awesome. David.
Yeah, I mean, I think the original question was about making mistakes and pivoting and things that have gone wrong. I mean, that's the story of every young company, or probably every company in this room. And I think ours is probably similar in a lot of ways to those stories. And Mark said something this morning where you could study something for 6 months, but if you spend one day actually doing it, you're probably going to accomplish more. And thinking back to when we started 6 years ago, we had a little idea to make something out of plastic, and we did make a mistake. Making a mistake doesn't necessarily mean you're doing something wrong, but at the time, we pictured building a skateboard company out of plastic, skate decks that we were collecting. And at the time, looking forward, if we had 6 months to study that, it would have never got off the ground. We would have never funded it, but we had $40,000 in funding for 12 months, and we had to sit around for a year and try to figure out what we were doing. And, we got there, we got a product, and then realized that it was a mistake, that we weren't going to build a skateboard company to solve the issue. And our kind of, I guess, eye-opening moment when we pivoted is about 4 years ago. We started piling up nets in warehouses, and the volume of material we were collecting was 100, 1,000 times more than we were ever going to put into our own products. And so we realized that if we were working on the supply chain side, collecting plastic, we were working to build products and working to market them, then we probably weren't using what everyone was following us for, the mission. We weren't fulfilling that. We were worried about marketing products and selling them. And so when we got back to the mission is to keep plastic out of the ocean, and if we focus on the supply chain issue and figure out why the nets are there, why there's an issue with the industry, and we attack that, and then we find companies that are really good at building products, really good at telling stories, and really good about solutions, then that's a scalable business model. And so in the last 4 years, that's what we've been working on, is really disrupting the need to rely on the fossil fuel industry and showing companies if you have to use a long life engineered plastic, there are alternatives, and we've made enough of it, so let's just use what's out there instead of creating more. And that's kind of our sole focus now.
That's great. Let's get some to-go containers made out of fishing nets. Elisa.
So for the Story of Stuff project, the two main ways that we have innovated are around storytelling and systems thinking. And the first example of storytelling is where we have made our mistake, which is that our founder, Annie Leonard, as I mentioned, traveled the world seeing where our trash goes and wanted to tell everyone she met about it and try to get them involved in making change. So she made this wonky PowerPoint called Why We Need a Paradigm Shift in the Materials Economy. It's funny, right? Because like no one knows what that means. And she would give talks and presentations in venues like this one. And it just went in one ear and out the other because it was full of data and facts and figures. And she was really a researcher and a campaigner and not a storyteller. And one person raised their hand at one of these events and said, "Why don't you just call it stuff?" And she was like, "Oh." And so that was a mistake we made early on, and we learned, how do you change hearts and minds? It's not with a legal argument. It's not with data. It's by telling a good story. Now, we need those other things, obviously, to make the change that we want to make, but if we want to change hearts and minds, we have to tell a good story. So Annie Leonard partnered with Jonah Sachs of Free Range Studios and made The Story of Stuff, which was a 20-minute YouTube video released in 2007 when YouTube was a wee baby, and basically told the story of our economy and the problems that it's creating for our planet. Using animation, and it's very relatable, and it continues to be viewed and used in classrooms and other spaces today. And that continues to be like a foundation of all of the work that we do, is really emphasizing storytelling. So the other thing that makes us, that we've innovated is our theory of change. So at the Story of Stuff project, it's really important for us to not emphasize individual isolated actions to address our environmental problems, but we need to look upstream and get to the root causes of the issues that we're facing and really focus our collective efforts there. So, bringing a bag to the grocery store, bringing our reusable water bottle, that's a great place to start. We should all be doing that. That's a terrible place to stop, because that is not enough to really, make the change that we need in our economy, and to really address these huge issues, existential issues we're facing around climate change. So, one example of how we use storytelling and systems thinking actually has to do locally with some of our partners, the Local Water Alliance in Cascade Locks, just right outside of Portland. I'm not sure if anyone's been there or knows that organization, but they were organizing to protect their community from Nestle coming in and buying rights to their water source and setting up a water bottling plant. The local community was very small, is low income, and they did not want this big company based in Switzerland to come in and take their water. And so they contacted The Story of Stuff because in 2011 we made a movie called The Story of Bottled Water, and kind of talking about how that's a product whose demand has been manufactured by corporations. Like, we don't really need bottled water at the scale that it's at. And so we partnered with this organization. We made a video about their community, about the activism that they were doing to help kind of get their story out. And then coupled with their local organizing efforts, they successfully passed a ballot measure that banned any large-scale water bottling activity from being set up in their town. So what does that mean? That means that everyone in that town, they're continuing to use their reusable bottle, but it also means that a whole plant was stopped that would have created a ton of, plastic trash. It would have sucked up their water resources and really decimated their community. So that's the kind of, solutions that we strive to look for, is really going upstream and getting to the root cause of the problem and trying to make an impact there.
That's amazing, yeah. Wow. I love that line, great place to start, terrible place to stop, right? And that's, when I think about innovation and, disruption, it's pretty easy to think of it as this one-off event, right? For those that aren't doing it, when we are doing it, all of us in this room, we know it's a process, right? That's happening all the time. It's evolving, it's changing. For us, when we started ReGrained, we didn't really realize that we would be starting, that every food company is basically a future trash business, right, with packaging. And there's this whole, in the CPG world, right, there's this P in CPG that's it's this massive, massive problem that when we started out trying to tackle food waste, we didn't really realize that was also kind of a world that we'd be dipping into. And so our mission has kind of evolved, around trying to design, a food system with, that doesn't waste, right, that values the resources that support, all life. And it's, the scope kind of broad, and we got to stay focused on what we're each doing. But I'd love to hear from each of you, kind of how maybe your your mission, your innovation has kind of changed in unexpected ways, and it's amazing everything that got you to here, but where are we going next? Let's start in the middle this time. David.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'd say on that thought that, like, I think we talked about this just before the panel, like, people think of disruptions as like moments in time, and is that an accurate kind of portrayal of what's happening? I mean, I think this is a disruption to shift things. So, and to jump into a little bit to Elisa's story, because we were chatting earlier about people have this misconception of waste and the way that things are designed and disposed of, and they don't always, it's a hard thing to grasp, like, why is so much waste getting into the environment, where is it coming from? And the reality is that we really need to disrupt permanently the way that we design and make products. Like, we run a recycling operation, but recycling isn't the answer. Working with companies to rethink about everything that they make and designing things from the start to really fit to the life of the product. If you have a water bottle made from plastic that's meant to use once, it's a broken system. It doesn't make sense. It's a perfect example, a gateway to, like, what's wrong with the way we design things. You should design the packaging and the product to fit the life of what you're using it for. And so there are applications where if we already have made plastic and it's out there, we can reuse it for things, but there's plenty of opportunities to redesign products altogether and completely disrupt the way that they're being made, so that if a product is built for a long life, we build it so that it lasts a long time, and then we design an end of life for it. So in that way, like, I really hope in my lifetime, and we'll play a very small role in this, but the idea that there's a landfill will go away. There's no waste. Like, everything is designed to go back into the economy, or it's designed to go into the earth. And, we can stop worrying about this issue that if you look at the island communities around the world that are filling up, they're the most obvious. If you look at the issues in a lot of Southeast Asia, even on Hawaii and a lot of the islands in South America, they're the perfect case study for what's going to happen to the world. We're going to run out of space and there's nowhere to put our stuff. So I think the disruption is a permanent disruption to change the way we design and make things.
Going middle out, Jocelyn, you're
Sure. Yeah, to us, I feel like part of the disruption that we're looking to do is call back to those values that our previous generations, our grandparents, had. And basically, we're redesigning the concept of a milkman. We're reusing these assets that are kind of either a private that is shared, or a public asset that we all have access to and we can utilize again and again. Evolution, yeah. I mean, I'm coming in at kind of I still have a fresh look at this business, given that I acquired it recently. The founder, GoBox was the first public reuse system in the US. In 2014, we licensed our first system in San Francisco. That was the first of its kind. We used to use these plastic tokens that people had to exchange, and then we became the first tech-enabled reuse system through our mobile app. And so I'm looking to, as I grow this business, continue to evolve and kind of be on the pulse of the food and drink industry and the changes. I think one of our biggest opportunities is food delivery, and how do we tap into that business? And it's so bottom line focused. I mean, it's a gig economy, and so how can we work and develop relationships with those organizations so that we can provide our sustainable solution. There's so much opportunity out there, and it's changing constantly, so it's about kind of like what Mark was talking about, just keep coming up with those ideas and keep tossing them out there, see what sticks. Don't necessarily believe people when they say that's not going to work. I still hear that pretty frequently, even though it's been working for 8 years. Yeah, we'll continue to try to not only change with the market, but also influence positive change by just existing, by just being here, by being present, by offering another option, another way of thinking about how we enjoy food and drink to go. And we could say that we should just stop eating out, but a lot of the food vendors that we work with are local small businesses. And it feels really good to work with those local small businesses that take a lot of pride in the food that they're producing with local ingredients. And so you know, I think, again, just kind of working together, building community around the cause, that's how we're going to evolve.
I love that. And one of the things that struck me when we were talking before this panel about your model is, you know, you're offering, you've got this great example in Portland and San Francisco that people can look to that works, but that you're not going to replicate it exactly everywhere that you go, right?
Nope.
You're actually allowing for it to adapt to each environment, which
Yeah,
I think
most
is really
definitely.
interesting.
Each community is different, and each community, how they deal with their waste is different. A lot of waste management these days is privately owned, and that's a problem because it turns out that those privately owned businesses are bottom line driven. So how can we take the power away from that model and bring it here, home to the community? You know, GoBox, we're not we are a turnkey in that we have all the tools to kind of spin out a reuse system in different communities. But we're not an Uber in that we can just flip a switch and exist in a new city. GoBox takes infrastructure, and that could be seen as too big of a hurdle to address. But I like to see it as a way for us to address other societal issues. You know, like how can we employ people that might be having trouble finding other employment, and how can we solve these other problems in conjunction with this primary problem of trying to eliminate single-use waste.
Love the questions and looking forward to the answers.
Me too.
Yeah. Shannon.
All right, I think moving forward, there's a couple things. One, leveraging I think, and this speaks to all of us, our being a 1%. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to your company, your organization? And how can you speak that to potential partners? We're having a grand opening event for a second location in May, and there's a couple people that we have said, you know, we're not going to let you be a vendor in a very nice way because we are supporting 1% companies and B Corp companies, and they're going to be our vendors for our grand opening, which hopefully can create a dialogue around what is 1%, what is a B Corp, and now how can we collectively, all of us, like invite people into that conversation. Like that's where this power is. And we saw the numbers, they went up by 800 new members. How can we double that, right? And I think that's kind of for us to like sit with and take that to the next level. So that's one, leveraging who we are as businesses, and two, meeting our customers where they are. Like, it's 1%, and we're the 1% that gets it, right? The environmental health. So we really need to think, how can I speak to my vendors, my partners, my stakeholders, my team members that don't get it? And we really have to meet them where they are, and maybe money is a driving force for them. And we can say, you know what? We've increased our revenue or our partners by 1% network by this. And we have to speak that language. We do quarterly events where we actually go get our hands dirty, and we're doing more of them, and we invite all of our team members, our customers to go do service projects and move their body, right? And see that, hey, I can improve my health and I'm helping the environment. And we do that with our amazing nonprofits. And then we do, every 3 years, we do an international trip where it's a lottery for our team members, and we take 15 people overseas somewhere, partner with a great nonprofit, get our hands dirty to see the impact that they can have in the bigger world, right? And they come back and they're so rejuvenated about what is possible. So I think innovating on how can we disrupt and get outside of our box and just, we are one planet. How can we get our partners? How can we get our team members? How can we get our communities involved in this effort? And we all have that power.
I love that, and it's amplifying the message, right? When you take someone to an experience like that, just like you said, in that there's probably, you know, hundreds of conversations that are happening after they get home from that. Of, oh, I just did this really cool thing. That's awesome. Thanks, Shannon. Elisa.
You're a true organizer. That's what I was thinking. That's my, framework of hearing what you're doing. You're organizing your community. Hats off to you for that. So, yeah. For Story of Stuff project, one important way that we have evolved is by really integrating, we were largely first known for the success of our storytelling, and we really focused on storytelling for the first 7 years of our organization. And every time we released a movie, we would get all these emails and outreach from the public saying, I just watched Story of Cosmetics, I just watched Story of Electronics, what can I do? What should I do? What should I buy? And we realized we weren't providing opportunities for people who cared about these issues, who were learning about these issues, to take action. And so we realized that we had the opportunity to organize folks, to organize a movement, and to really start doing campaigning and advocacy. And so what we did is we have a model that is coined by our campaigns director, Steve Wilson, that's called Movie Movement Metric Outcome. So what does that mean? Whenever we want to work on an issue that's related to stuff or some of our core themes, we make a movie about it first. And we use the storytelling practices that we've learned work. We use social media, we make it relatable, we make it funny, it's hopeful. We release a movie, and then we organize the movement. And this is always done in coalition with individuals and with groups like all of you in the room, to actually advocate for change. And sometimes that's signing a petition, sometimes it's doing a beach cleanup, sometimes it's calling your legislator. And then we get a metric outcome or a win from that. And so the first time we did this, it was with the story of microbeads. You all who work in the personal care industry know what those are. They're little pieces of plastic that were in our face wash and our soaps, used as an exfoliant that really there were natural alternatives, but it was cheaper for major corporations to use plastic. And they were designed to be so small, they went down the drains, they weren't captured by water treatment plants, and they were going into our environment and being eaten by the fish, and we eat the fish, and that's pretty nasty, right? And this is something that, like, we don't need this kind of stuff in our lives. So we made the story of microbeads, then we organized a statewide campaign in California to ban them, along with our partners who are 1% members like Five Gyres and the Plastic Pollution Coalition who are here, and many others. And we won a ban on microbeads in the state of California. Because California is the 5th largest economy in the world, it was really easy then to put that legislation on Obama's desk, and with bipartisan support, there was a ban at the national level that was signed into law. So really,
Wow.
Yeah, so. And really, that came down to movement building and to organizing it, and that kind of sweet combination of movie, movement, metric outcome. So we've since leveraged that, microbeads, banning that, not the biggest environmental issue, right? There's other, larger contributors to climate change and things like that. So we really built on that success by now working on bigger issues of plastic pollution. And so we're making our first full-length documentary called The Story of Plastic that tells the full life cycle of plastic, including the fact that, plastic all comes from fossil fuels, and not a lot of people make that connection, that plastic is fossil fuels. We are organizing with the Break Free from Plastic movement, which is a global movement of 1,600 members worldwide that's really emphasizing solutions to our incredible crisis of plastic pollution that are rooted in human rights and international solidarity. And then we're also organizing another statewide campaign in California to kind of, all the stuff that's ending up in the ocean, the straws, the bags, the cups. Rather than banning those one by one, we just want to ban all the low-value stuff that you can't recycle it, it's hard to capture, let's just get rid of it all, we don't need it. And so, we're also trying to increase demand for recycled plastic and reduce virgin content, and really kind of redo the economic model of recycling in California. So that's what we're working on right now. And for any of you who have ever signed a petition or were involved, thank you.
It's awesome. So in the spirit, I want to leave some time for questions at the end, but kind of to wrap things up as a discussion point, like in the spirit of movement building, one thing that I think is really amazing about 1% is that it's not this static relationship between donor and benefactor, right? It's much more dynamic than that. And speaking from experience, on our end, like we've been very influenced by our nonprofit partner, a company called Food Shift that's in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we're influencing each other, and we got kind of frustrated in our end that we're still a pretty small company. Our sales are not huge, so our 1% contribution to them wasn't very big. And so we thought, okay, what else can we do? And so we started doing we just these pop-up dinners where we create menus using our stuff with our flour with other companies, and then we just donate everything from that pop-up dinner to the nonprofit. And having that kind of close relationship shifted the way that we're thinking about things. So we'd love to hear from you guys, pretty briefly, so we can have some time for questions, like maybe who your nonprofit partner is, who your for-profit partner is, and how you guys have impacted each other in this movement creation. Whoever wants to take it first is welcome to at this point.
I'll start. I think that's been one of the trickiest things with our evolution with our nonprofits. It seems in the nonprofit world, we've reached out to a company to donate money, and they're like, you're a 1% what? And I'm like, well, you're on the 1% page, and their 1% nonprofit manager has turned over. And so then it's been left with, okay, they don't even realize they're a 1% recipient, and we've had that several times. And so we've now really kind of buckled down, and we're committed to establishing relationships with the 1% nonprofits. So we'll set up a meeting with the director of their 1% network, and we sit down with them and we talk about expectations, like what we're looking to get out of this relationship. We want to donate you money, yes, and how are we going to work together? We don't want it to just be handing money without a true relationship. And that's led to just some really great potential relationships where we meet other donors to the nonprofit group, where we're doing bike rides for water. So now all of a sudden we're getting out and we're partnering with another 1% company, and we do a bike ride with a nonprofit, and all the proceeds go to Water First International. With Earth Corps up in Seattle, we've sat down with them several times. We've been to their gala auction. We are going out as a group on Earth Day with Earth Corps, and we have 60 people from our team, our community, and our customers that are working together. So we're really taking these relationships to heart, and how can we grow them and invest in them? And at the same time, we want our nonprofits to invest in us, and that's just kind of the expectation we're setting.
I'll go. I mean, I'd say we've overcomplicated our business model in the first 6 years, and we're trying to simplify it now, but we sell products in California. We're headquartered there. We're a B Corp. We're a benefits corporation. And we also operate a business entity in South America where we collect material. So we have kind of two sources of revenue coming from raw material in South America and final products in California. And so for our 1% relationships, they've been split to date, and we're looking at ways to align them. But I'd say historically we've kind of stayed true to looking to back projects that really align with our mission and what we care about. So in California, we've certainly partnered with Five Gyres a bunch on some of their expeditions and all of their research work, which has been great. Save the Waves is a local nonprofit in Santa Cruz that was working to protect Punta de Lobos, a surf wave in Chile that was really a special place for us. So we have supported them over the last few years. And Surfrider, their campaign for Drilling is Killing, that was going after offshore drilling in the US. Those were all kind of missions that we've gotten behind. And then for our supply chain side, we've really put it on the local communities where we've worked. So, and we have a couple examples of that now that we've been doing that the last couple of years in Chile, where instead of trying to kind of go there and force a project a certain way, Ben on our team, a co-founder who kind of lives on the ground in South America, has gone to the communities, gone to the fisheries we worked with, and really asked them, like, what do you guys need? This is the way our model works. For every kilogram of material we collect, we have funds that can go back in, and to be honest, I think we were closer to like 5 to 8% of revenue in South America for donations last year. And some of those projects have been solar systems. Last year we co-funded a solar system for a local school because their electricity costs were high. This year we've partnered with a coastal nonprofit in the south of Chile who was doing education on recycling at schools, which was really great. We built a couple of systems, but we asked them, we're like, where do you see pollution an issue in your community? And they said, well, the local fish markets all hand out plastic utensils and plastic cups. And so they're developing a plan now that would at least pilot reusable and natural materials for the fish markets, and we're going to help fund that with them this year. And so it's trying to find ways that don't necessarily directly benefit our business or even align with exactly what we're doing, but kind of benefit the environment or the society in the way that we think is something that aligns well with our mission. And we've gotten a lot of success out of that, and definitely something that we're going to continue to try to grow as we get bigger.
And so GoBox, we became a 1% for the Planet business member just this past January. So we're still super fresh here. We don't have any existing relationships with nonprofits. With my previous job, we were a 1% member, so I'm familiar with how it works. But I'm really excited to, in this new focus, find some great nonprofits to partner with. And this is great advice to hear from both of you as to how to really leverage that connection to drive grid change. One of the areas that I'm most interested in addressing is environmental justice. I think trash is a really nice word for pollution, and that's what it is, and it negatively affects underrepresented, low-income communities of color. That's the reality. And you know, we need to address that there, and so I'm on the hunt for some environmental justice organizations to work with. There's a great organization here in Portland called Opal. I don't know if they're a 1% for the Planet member yet. Yeah? Awesome. So I'll reach out to them. And if anybody has any other recommendations, please reach out. I'd love to learn from them. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, and from the other end, yeah, how's your relationship with your for-profit partners? You know, how have you guys influenced each other?
It's great. I mean, you know, for us, so we're a nonprofit. Story of Stuff Project is one of 3,000 nonprofits that are part of the 1% for the Planet network. So, you know, I would be remiss not to start this remark with saying thank you. You know, thank you for your donations, thank you for your leadership in your field, your innovation, and thank you for your partnership. It really, truly makes a difference, every single dollar, to nonprofits like ours and the other, you know, 2,999 members. You know, for us, we partner with, you know, Clean Canteen, Dr. Bronner, Patagonia, Cliff Bar, you know, groups that are part of this network and more that are really, you know, sharing our mission of reducing waste and consumption issues. And, you know, I also want to speak to sort of the non-financial part of one of the benefits of this network. You know, Story of Stuff Project, we're really trying to educate folks, you know, about an alternative economy that is based on reuse. We're telling folks, we got to jump off this sinking ship before it's too late, right? And we can't tell people to do that without showing them alternatives, like life rafts and other ships that they can jump on. And that is the role that you all play as business partners. And so, you know, we are able to show solutions and alternatives, you know, to our community because of you. I think another role we play is, like, we help level the playing field for groups like yours that are trying to do the right thing by trying to hold corporations that are doing the wrong thing and trashing our planet accountable through some of our campaigns. And, you know, we're not always going to see eye to eye in this network, you know, advocates and nonprofits in the private sector. But if we can dialogue and see each other as allies, you know, the vision that we have for a more sustainable future can come more fully into view. And in that dialogue, you know, building off of Mark's presentation, those challenges, you know, those are spaces for innovation and change. So we should definitely, you know, and the 1% for the Planet is one space where we can continue to have those dialogues.
It's amazing. Thank you. So, unfortunately, I think in such a great discussion, in the spirit of keeping us on schedule, probably come find us later, you know, for questions. So what I'd like to invite everyone to do is join me in thanking these panelists and thanking the community. And thanks to everyone for all that you do.